There's a massive problem with Social Security right now. Social Security overpayment problem swells to $23 billion. Republicans fight with Dems on the left over key 2024 election argument. Think benefit cuts. Biden signs major spending bill that includes 12 annual appropriations bills, along with $13.6 billion in support for Ukraine and fleeing refugees. While Social Security will force women to pay back $88,000 in overpayments, the U.S. government agrees to settlements to cut checks and make payouts to migrant families at the border, and an early warning behind why there will be no Social Security payments on Wednesday, November 29. Today is Monday, November 27, 2023, and let's get started with the latest. House passes aid bill for Israel and approved $14.3 billion for Israel's war with Hamas as they tie the aid to spending cuts and avoidance of a government shutdown. And fears grow in Congress over Ukraine and Israel aid amid dispute over immigration and spending cuts. So the situation in Congress regarding aid to Ukraine and Israel is complex and fraught with challenges. President Biden has emphasized the need for U.S. support to these countries, framing it as crucial for shaping global dynamics. However, in Congress, the prospects for such aid are uncertain due to various political disputes. The aid package for Ukraine and Israel is currently stalled in Congress. Now, this impasse is unusual as Congress typically approves urgently needed aid swiftly. The holdup is partly due to disagreements over whether to continue supporting Ukraine, compounded by contentious immigration policy issues. Key figures in these discussions include Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and President Biden advocating for a combined funding package for Ukraine and Israel. In contrast, House Speaker Mike Johnson favors only funding Israel, coupled with IRS cuts. Johnson and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell conditioned GOP support for Ukraine and their aid on stricter immigration laws, particularly concerning border security with Mexico. Negotiations are ongoing, but reaching a consensus seems challenging. The White House has requested significant funding for border security, including hiring more Border Patrol agents and asylum officers. However, Republicans seek broader policy changes, particularly in asylum processes. They propose raising the standard for credible fear in asylum claims, making it harder for migrants to pursue asylum in the U.S. In the Senate, there are proposals for policy changes regarding how the Biden administration handles parole and the detention of migrant families. Despite ongoing talks, there's skepticism about reaching a satisfactory agreement. The aid package also includes substantial funding for Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific region, reflecting a broad scope of international concerns. In the House, there's tensions over the aid package, with hard right Republicans warning against any immigration compromise they perceive as weak. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and others expressed strong opposition to tying Ukraine aid with border security measures. On the left, there's pressure regarding aid to Israel. Progressive figures like Senator Bernie Sanders advocate for strict conditions on aid to Israel, focusing on its actions in conflict with Hamas. This stance faces pushback from other Democrats who oppose conditioning aid to Israel, arguing it would weaken U.S. national security and the fight against terror. The Biden administration underscores the importance of aid to Ukraine for U.S. security, but Congress's ability to move forward with the aid package remains uncertain. And this situation highlights the intricate interplay of international aid, domestic policy, and political dynamics in the U.S. legislative process. And Biden also wants credit for lower Thanksgiving food and travel prices. The Biden administration is highlighting the lower costs of Thanksgiving essentials like dinner staples, airfare, and gasoline compared to last year as part of an effort to gain public recognition for the economic policies. Despite these year-over-year reductions, overall prices for food and other staples remain higher than pre-pandemic levels, and overall food prices at home increased year over year last month. Inflation, which has been a significant issue for the administration, is attributed by White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre to C-19 pandemic supply chain disruptions and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. However, some economists also point to Biden's $1.9 trillion spending bill as a contributing factor. The White House is eager to showcase these lower prices as a success of Bidenomics, especially as President Biden runs for re-election. Despite these efforts, it's uncertain whether this message will resonate with Americans who continue to feel economic discontent. The American Farm Bureau Federation reports that a Thanksgiving dinner for 10 people costs an average of $61.17 this year, which is a 4.5% decrease from last year, with significant price drops in items like turkey, cranberries, and heavy cream. However, this year's average cost is still 25% higher than pre-pandemic levels. Gasoline prices have also decreased significantly, potentially marking the lowest Thanksgiving week price since 2020. Additionally, airfares in October were down over 13% from last year. And despite these declines, Biden's critics, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a potential 2024 Republican primary contender, blame his spending bills and regulatory agenda for ongoing inflation. They propose reversing these policies to reduce prices and interest rates further. And less than a year from the next election, Biden's strategy to campaign on his economic achievement faces challenges as indicated by low job approval ratings and polls showing potential electoral difficulties against former President Donald Trump and among voters who prioritize the economy. Whereas we can see here that the U.S. government prioritizes cutting checks and sending money to migrants at the border to give their families a boost. And so the U.S. government has agreed to a settlement with the ACLU in a class action lawsuit over the separation of thousands of migrant families at the U.S.-Mexico border under the Trump administration's zero tolerance policy in 2017 and 2018. This policy led to over 5,000 families being separated, with children sent to juvenile centers and parents often deported. The youngest child separated was just 6 months old, and the policy was eventually halted due to public outrage. Key aspects of the settlement, pending approval by U.S. District Judge Dana M. Sabro, include the prohibition of blanket family separation, whereas the settlement bars immigration officials from implementing a blanket policy of family separation for the next 8 years. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has indicated that the current administration does not plan to separate families. However, former President Donald Trump has not ruled out reinstating this policy if reelected. Number 2, asylum interviews and benefits, as separated families will be granted an interview with an asylum officer who was briefed on their experiences, and they will also receive work authorization and housing benefits. Moving on, access to mental health resources, acknowledging the lasting trauma. Mayorkas confirmed that reunited families would have access to mental health services for healing and restoration of their well-being. Now, despite these provisions, there are still challenges. Unreunited families, where up to 1,000 children remain separated from their parents, living with extended relatives, family, friends, or under state supervision. The settlement includes continued U.S. government support to reunify these families, including locating and bringing back deported parents or guardians to the U.S. There's no financial compensation, as the settlement does not include monetary compensation for the affected families. Negotiations for financial compensation were terminated in 2021 after objections from Republican lawmakers who argued that the proposed amounts were excessively high. And overall, while the settlement marks a significant step in addressing the consequences of the family separation policy, it also highlights the ongoing challenges in the absence of direct financial compensation for the affected families. And speaking of affected families and the absence of their direct financial compensation, Social Security is trying to force Chicago women to pay back $88,000 in overpayments. So the Social Security Administration, or the SSA, is attempting to reclaim over $20 billion in overpayments, including $4.7 billion already recovered, affecting many vulnerable individuals, including seniors and the disabled. One such case is that of Diane O'Brien from Chicago, who has been asked to repay over $88,000. O'Brien, a retired school clerk, received monthly Social Security benefits after her husband's death. However, 2 years later, the SSA stopped her payments and demanded repayment, claiming she was not entitled to the funds due to her government pension. This situation, referred to as clawback, is not unique to O'Brien, and financial columnist Terry Savage reports many similar cases, describing the situation as Social Security haunting seniors. Savage, co-author of Social Security Horror Stories, criticizes the SSA's outdated technology and indifference, which have contributed to these issues. She advocates for stopping clawbacks that are financially devastating to seniors and disabled people. And the SSA acknowledges that overpayments occur, but notes they are a small percentage of total payments, around 0.5% for Social Security and about 8% for Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. Despite this, the impact on individuals like O'Brien is significant. Savage has called on Congress and the Treasury Secretary to intervene, suggesting a policy to prevent the SSA from reclaiming overpayments after 1 year, a move that could protect retirees. In response to these issues, the Social Security Commissioner recently announced the formation of a team to review the department's overpayment policies and procedures. And I have the latest, a breaking release from the Washington Post, which asks the question and dives into what we all want to know. And that is Social Security really in trouble? Now, that'll be coming up in a future video. And I think it's important to know, since right now, the Social Security overpayment problem has swelled to $23 billion, and the Social Security Administration will now have to try to recoup $23 billion in overpayments. And they're talking about how the Social Security Administration, the SSA, faces a significant challenge in managing overpayments, with the total amount reaching $23 billion. According to the SSA's latest agency financial report, in fiscal year 2022, the SSA made $11.1 billion in overpayments and $2.5 billion in underpayments, a noticeable increase from the $6 billion in overpayments and the $1.4 billion in underpayments in fiscal year 2021. Overpayments generally happen due to late work reports, changes affecting benefits, beneficiaries receiving payments during appeals, or miscalculations by the SSA. In fact, $2 billion of the fiscal year 2022 overpayments included $1.5 billion were identified as being within agency control. The SSA Inspector General's report highlights that even minor errors in payment processes can lead to millions in improper payments. When overpayments are identified, the SSA attempts to recover them. Despite recovering $4.9 billion in overpayments in fiscal year 2023, the uncollected overpayments increased from $21.6 billion to $23 billion by the year's end. The SSA is projected to distribute about $1.4 trillion in benefits to nearly 67 million Americans in 2023 through Social Security and Supplemental Security Income. And this issue has caught the attention of lawmakers, with some calling for a halt to collection efforts. U.S. Representative Mark Molinaro, Republican from New York, criticized the SSA for demanding seniors to repay the administration's mistakes, noting that most affected individuals would struggle to repay these amounts, and he urged the SSA to focus on improving their systems rather than aggressively pursuing repayments from seniors. The SSA has not responded to requests for comment on this issue at the time of reporting, but there has been an update on Wednesday's checks and why there will be no Social Security payments on Wednesday, November 29th. So you see, the Social Security Administration, the SSA, will not be making payments on Wednesday, November 29, because it is the 5th Wednesday of the month, and all scheduled payments for the month have already been distributed, and the SSA follows a specific schedule for dispersing benefits. And here's a look at the breakdown of the SSA's specific schedule for dispersing benefits. Number 1, Supplemental Security Income, or SSI benefits, where SSI benefits are typically paid on the first of every month, and if the first falls on a weekend or holiday, payments are made on the last working day before the weekend or holiday. For instance, in 2024, since New Year's Day is on a Sunday, The first COLA adjusted payment will be made on Friday, December 29, 2023. This scheduling means that SSI beneficiaries will receive 2 payments in December of 2023 and none in January of 2024. In October, the average SSI benefit amounts were $790.41 for those under 18, $720.97 for individuals aged 18 to 64, and $554.10 for those over the age of 65. Social Security benefits, and these benefits are distributed on the first 3 Wednesdays of every month, with the specific Wednesday depending on the recipient's birth date. However, for those who have been receiving benefits since before May of 1997, their benefits are always sent on the 3rd of each month. And if the 3rd falls on a weekend or holiday, payments are made on the preceding working day. In October of 2023, the average Social Security benefit for the 49.9 million retired workers was $1,843.96. Therefore, no payments are scheduled for the 5th Wednesday of a month, like November 29, as the SSA's distribution schedule covers only the first 3 Wednesdays of each month for Social Security benefits and the first of the month for SSI benefits. And although this isn't likely to change, there are some proposed changes to Social Security in talks and discussions. Because according to Go Banking Rates and Yahoo Finance, Democrats and Republicans want expanded benefits and to see cuts to Social Security, and is a key argument in the upcoming 2024 presidential election. And basically, Social Security is poised to be a crucial issue in the 2024 election, with the narrative often simplistically framed as Democrats wanting to expand the program and Republicans wanting to cut it. However, this portrayal may not fully capture the nuances of each party's position. The Social Security Old Age and Survivors Insurance, the OASI, Trust Fund faces a funding shortfall projected to run out of money within the next decade. This would leave the program reliant solely on payroll taxes, which currently cover only about 77% of benefits. And the debate centers around how to address this issue, with solutions generally falling into 2 categories: increasing funding through higher taxes or reducing costs through benefit cuts and eligibility changes. President Joe Biden, facing low approval ratings, has been urged by some progressive Democrats to make the expansion of Social Security as a central theme of his 2024 campaign. This strategy could reinforce Biden's image as a protector of Social Security against Republican cuts. Alex Lawson, executive director of Social Security Works, believes emphasizing this distinction can be effective, especially in states with significant senior populations like Florida. In contrast, former President Donald Trump, a leading GOP presidential candidate, has opposed cutting Social Security benefits, advocating instead for reducing waste, fraud, and abuse. Other Republican candidates have suggested various approaches. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis proposes cutting benefits for younger individuals, but preserving them for current and near future beneficiaries. Nikki Haley, former South Carolina governor, suggests raising the retirement age for younger workers and limiting benefits for the wealthy. And former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie has mentioned the need for cuts to avoid bankruptcy. Biden's plan to address Social Security challenges includes taxing earned income above $400,000 while leaving wages between $160,200 and $400,000 untaxed, changing the calculation for annual cost of living adjustments, the COLA adjustments, to base them on the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, the CPIE, instead of the current CPIW, increasing the primary insurance amount, the PIA, to determine Social Security benefits, and raising the special minimum benefit for lifetime lower wage workers to 125% of the federal poverty level. These diverse positions and proposals suggest that Social Security will be a complex and potentially divisive topic in the upcoming election, with each candidate's stance likely to impact a broad spectrum of voters. Stay tuned, because coming up next, Florida's retirees are fleeing, and here's where they are going instead. Which states' Social Security cuts would impact the most and the least? And learn 3 ways to recession-proof your retirement. Like and subscribe. It helps the channel, and for more videos and breaking updates like these, thanks for watching.